Hey, it's Seth. I'm the author of 20 books, including The Song of Significance. This is not the real cover. Best advice I ever got is don't look for good advice.
Don't look for good advice. Who said that to you, Seth? When did they say that?
They said it to me a really long time ago, and the lesson is you're going to figure it out. That we don't learn because someone tells us something that's going to be on the test. We learn by exploring things that cause us to change our mind. That doesn't mean we do dumb stuff. It means we open ourselves up to experience.
Ooh. Ooh. So is there a how to open ourselves up for experience, or does it just happen if we're not looking?
Well, I think that we've been indoctrinated from a young age to not want negative feedback, to get an A on the test, to get picked, and to blame somebody else for whatever happens, because industrialists want us to act that way. And what it means to open yourself up to experience is to be very comfortable with the sentence, this might not work. And when you hear about idiots who die climbing mountains or skiing off piste, they forgot to ask themselves what would happen if it doesn't work. That you always want to leave yourself out. But particularly in the business of selling or in interacting with other people, nobody is good at selling their first day. So what happens between your first day and your 100th day or your 1000th day? What happens is you make generous mistakes that you can recover from along the way, not that you follow every step Zig Ziglar ever wrote down, because Zig was super great, but Zig didn't have a manual. Zig had a compass. And he said, in this direction, you might be able to teach yourself something.
Yeah, I like to think of myself, right, as the greatest American hero. I got a super suit. So I'm just me, right? And I don't know where this is going. There's no manual for it, but I'm going to do the absolute best that I can, and then I'm going to pivot from there and make different decisions. Does that kind of sum up what you were talking about there, Seth?
I think it's a big part of it. You know, Kal-El, the problem with being Superman is you're invulnerable, and that's really boring. For the rest of us, we are mortal, and we don't want to set up situations where we can't recover. I have failed more times than most people who are listening to this, and I'm super proud of it. But part of what it means to fail the most is you have to fail in service of others and do it with resilience so you can play again tomorrow.
Yeah, in the service of others. I think that's the one a lot of people miss. I think that's often what gives us our significance, which takes us into your book here, right? The Song of Significance. So first, why a song, Seth? Why is it a song and not a brogue or something like that?
So in the Northern Hemisphere, in May, around now, most beehives will not have survived the winter because they ran out of honey because the weather was too inclement. But if they did, the Council of Maidens inside the hive will meet, and they may decide that the hive has enough resilience to leap forward. And what they will do is two things. One, they will instruct the rest of the worker bees, the maidens, to go out and collect as much pollen as they possibly can, as fast as they can, which happens to coincide with what flowers need. And within just a few weeks, they'll replenish the honey supply. But the other thing they will do is they will message the queen and ask her to lay and fertilize a queen egg. Now, queen bees lay 800 to 1,000 eggs a day, but they don't fertilize any of them. There's only room in a hive for one queen. It's a big deal when the queen creates a new queen. And what the maidens will do is they will lavish that queen with royal jelly and feed her as she is about to be born. And then, if the weather is conducive, the maidens will send a message to all the bees in the hive. And except for the baby bees, they will all leave in a 10-minute period of time. The queen and all the senior bees, they just swarm out. And that is what my friend Jacqueline Freeman calls the song of increase. And the song of increase is thrilling because it's about going from here to there without being sure. It's about showing up in a tree just 100 yards away, and now you only have 72 hours to find a new place to live. And in that moment, after the song of increase, after this leap into the void, they sing the song of safety. And the song of safety is about hunkering down and staying dry and keeping the temperature of the hive at 98 degrees. And if they don't find a place to live in 3 days, they're all going to die. But just imagine what it's like to leave behind the hive and all the honey and the new queen and the pips. Well, we're not bees, we're people. And what people seek is the song of significance. And the song of significance is different than the song of safety. Song of safety is what industrialists want us to do what we're told. But the song of significance, and I polled 10,000 people in 90 countries, and they overwhelmingly told me the same thing, which is we want to exceed our own expectations. We want to be treated with dignity and respect, and we want to do something that matters. And why don't we go ahead and build that world? That's what the book is about. Building a life where we don't have to regret the way we spend tomorrow.
So why don't we, Seth? What gets in our way? Why don't we just build that world? I mean, it sounds pretty awesome to me. So why aren't folks doing it?
Well, we've been indoctrinated for 100 years by cheap oil, by industrialism, by convenience, by the consumer economy, by the educational industrial complex, by the wedding industrial complex, by the military industrial complex, to be cogs in a system. And the thing that we have to do to get out of it is we have to take something that can't be given to us, and that is responsibility. And taking responsibility is scary and inconvenient and feels risky. But in a world of GPT and outsourcing and machines and AI, it's the safest thing we can do.
Wow. That's like such a counter thought to what so many believe. And yet, you know, I know that's true. I know that people find that's true. So what about worker surveillance though, Steph? This is such an interesting concept of, okay, so I'm going to watch you and I'm going to log every keystroke that you make, and I'm going to make sure you punch in and punch out. And now we have companies that are saying, no, if I can't see you, you're not really working. Who was it? Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank said, if you don't come into the office, expect for me to call you at 2 a.m. because I want to know that you're always working. I mean, what the heck? How does that, I guess, run counter to the song of significance?
Oh my God, what a bad guy. So Amazon has a service called AWS, and part of AWS is they power many of the call centers around the world. And you can just plug in and use their software. They proudly announced a few months ago something called Contact Lens, which is a great name. Contact Lens listens to every single conversation every person in your call center has. And AI alerts the manager in real time if any of your agents say something inappropriate or show stress, even in their silences, so that you can zoom in and do something on the spot. And bosses who say, come to the office or you're fired, or use Zoom calls to take attendance, or act like bullies, who harass the disabled, who show up thinking that what work is supposed to be is brutal. Well, that's part of industrialism, because we call it human resources. Hey, humans aren't a resource. Humans are the point. And what we have discovered is that if there's a stopwatch measuring what you do, they're going to try to make it faster and cheaper. And they're going to try to turn you into a machine or just replace you with a machine. And the frontier that's left is the frontier of being human, of being creative, of doing something that someone couldn't tell you how to do it yesterday. And if you're not willing to do that, I feel badly, because this isn't about privilege or caste or about where you were born. It's about how we've each been indoctrinated into thinking that this is normal. It's not normal. It's fairly new.
Wow. So I'm guessing you subscribe, as I do, to our friend Tom Peters' idea of extreme humanism. Yeah?
I have this book sitting right there.
Yeah. Great book. Yeah, I love Tom. He's all about all the stuff that you just said. So with that, Seth, what makes a job the best job ever?
Right. So this is the survey I was talking about. I said to people, what's the best job you ever had and why? And, Tom, I've known Tom since 1984. And to be on stage with Tom was one of the privileges of my life. He's been talking about this for a long time, and he's done it eloquently. He was way ahead of his time. And the reason he was is because companies were still making bank on the old method. And so they would pay lip service to what he was talking about. But when push came to shove, oh, let's lay off 10,000 people. Oh, let's put people under surveillance because we're going to keep turning the dial. And what I'm here to say is, as coming from the point of view of a marketer, the dial's fallen off. The dial isn't there anymore, and we can't race to the bottom any faster. And so, I have nothing but respect and honor for Tom, and mention him in the book because he got it long before anybody else. And the difference is that what I'm arguing is you've got to talk about it. You've got to bring this book to your boss. You've got to have a meeting with your coworkers. You've got to decide, how do you want to invest the next year of your life? Because going to work is a vote. And if you're going to vote for that regime, like, why on earth would you keep working for Twitter if you didn't have a legal requirement to do so? What does that say about what you believe your work should be?
Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful. So with that, you talk about Twitter and about Tom's extreme humanism, right? But let's move this over to the boss, right? So bosses have to keep some promises, make some promises, and make sure that their workers have an understanding of what's expected of them. But what other commitments do they have to make, Seth, in order for this to potentially be the best job ever for them?
So throughout the book, I use the phrase, let's get real or let's not play, which is Kostler's phrase. He uses it to talk about sales. I'm broadening it a great deal, which is, it's not a one-way street. It's not, we have free M&Ms and snacks and you can come in when you feel like it. There's a really significant two-way street here, which is, you tell me what your dreams and desires are. You tell me what you want to be on the hook for. And I, in return, will create the conditions for you to keep that promise to this team. If you're not prepared to get real about what you're going to do, then I'm not prepared to tell you that that's going to be what it's like around here. Turnover is not a bad thing. Turnover is a good thing, because what we're saying is, this bus goes to Cleveland. And if you want to go to Topeka, today is a good day to get off. Don't start yelling from the back that we should be going to Topeka. We're going to Cleveland. Let's get real about how we do that together or not. So a lot of the lessons in the book are from the experience I had building the Carbon Almanac with 1,900 other volunteers. So I didn't write it, but I did organize it. And I spent a year of my life, 15 hours a day, as a volunteer to build a 97,000 word almanac about climate change. And how did we do that in 5 months with researching it, writing it, laying out, designing it, fact-checking it, footnoting it, submitting it, and making 0 significant errors? We didn't do it because someone could get fired, because we were all volunteers. We delivered it on time because we had an agreement among ourselves. We are here to do this. If you want to do something else, we get it. Go do something else somewhere else. This is what we do around here, and this is how we do it.
That's so crystal clear for folks as you say it that way. And yet there's always so much ambiguity in the workspace. So whose charter is it, I guess, to fix that ambiguity?
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It's only a 200-page book. I'm saying 2 things in the book. 1, we need to see it. We need to see that we've been indoctrinated and that we are victims of a system. And 2, we have to decide which side of it we want to be on. And if you decide you want to build a life of significance and offer it to other people, I'm betting you'll figure out a way to do it.
That's funny. Yeah, that takes us back to our beginning there. So with that, Seth, there's so much that we could talk about in the book. I like your little 2x2 diagram, though, the intersection of trust and essential work. But so let's talk about that. Where does work headed? What happens when stakes get high? Where do organizations focus, and what does that say about them? Oh, look at you, huh?
We have a chart. There you go. We did not practice this.
We did not.
Um, so I love 2x2 grids, as do you. So over here in this corner is high stakes and low trust. This is your call may be monitored. This is all of the interactions that we have for $1 or for $1 million, like wiring money from the bank, where the bank doesn't trust its employees and it doesn't trust the person who's logging in. So there's all of these steps. It's all under surveillance. And I think most of us are okay with certain kinds of transactions being like that because we want them to be fairly inexpensive and very reliable. Below that is low trust and low stakes. So an example of this is, I need this audio transcribed, right? I can send it to 3 different services for $1 each. One of them is going to figure it out. It's fine. I can recover from a mistake. Doesn't cost me very much. That quadrant, you probably don't want to live in. The third quadrant on the other side, high trust, low stakes. And this is when I walk into the coffee shop and I order something from the person I order something from every day, and they know I'm not going to be a deadbeat. And I know that I don't have to inspect exactly how much sugar they put in it because we have a level of trust there. And when we talk about interactions that make us feel good, we are often talking about that. And the fourth quadrant, the quadrant that I care about the most, is high stakes and high trust. So this is Dave Brubeck and his quartet on the stage at Carnegie Hall in 1963. Dave is not watching to make sure that, the drummer has the sheet music in front of him. There's an enormous amount of trust there. If someone screws up, the live album doesn't work. If someone screws up, the reputation with the band goes down. It's high stakes, but it's high trust. And you can bet that Phil Desmond or whoever was on stage with Dave that day felt special. Nobody was daydreaming. Nobody was wondering what job they were going to do next. They were there. That was human because it was high stakes and high trust. And you can have an institution that has a mix of these. So the Aravind Eye Hospital is a fine example. The Aravind Eye Hospital has restored the sight of more human beings than anybody. They have restored the sight of more than the total population of Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles put together. It's a chain of hospitals in India that does cataract surgery. It either costs $130 or zero. It's up to you, your choice. You get the same surgery either way. And I could talk all day about Aravind, but the point is, if you are a surgeon at Aravind, you are under surveillance. There is a rigid way to do your job, and you will do it over and over and over again to perfection because it's someone's eyesight, right? High stakes, low trust. On the other hand, everybody else on the staff who is there to make you feel comfortable and secure and safe, who is there to acknowledge your humanity, who is there to connect you to healing, those people, it's high stakes and high trust that you are to use your best judgment in dealing with people. And one problem we have with the U.S. medical healthcare service is there's no trust. We have thin-sliced every job and taken the humanity away from doctors because we think we can save $1 doing so.
Ugh, yeah, so true. So knowing that that's true, how do we get back to significance, Seth? How do we get back home, if you will, and sing the song that we need to make the changes we need?
Well, once you decide, a whole bunch of things become very clear to you, right? So I'm working on a project right now, and instead of doing it the way I would have done it 10 years ago, I assembled a group of people who I have come to trust because I've worked with them before. I gave them the tools to do important work with trust. And I didn't say, here's all the tasks I know what to do. I said to them, using the new tools we've got, we have a discourse install and we can get on a Zoom call, all this stuff that was impossible 10 years ago. In 48 hours, this group of people has come up with more profound ideas for this idea than I could have in 5 years because possibility is right there in front of them. But I had to let go of something. I had to not be a manager and be a leader. And you're not a leader because your name's on the door. You're a leader because you gave up control to other people.
Seth, but how do we do that? How do we give up control when we're ingrained to hold tight?
So I like to tell the story of the Boston Marathon. Uh, when it happens next year, a whole bunch of people will finish and a whole bunch of other people will make it to mile 20 and then quit. And the difference between the people who quit at 20 and the people who finish is not who gets tired, because everyone who finishes also gets tired. The people who quit at mile 20 couldn't figure out where to put the tired. And so they had no choice but to quit. And it doesn't matter how many coaches you go to. None of them can coach you on how to do the marathon without getting tired. What you might learn, if you care enough, is where to put the tired. And significance involves fear, because we are undoing indoctrination. And you're going to have to figure out where to put the fear, right? Like, you've had this podcast for how many years, Phil?
15.
So 15 years ago, everyone who's listening to this had every technology they needed to start a podcast, but only you did. Why is that? Were you not afraid? I think you were probably afraid.
Sure.
You decided it was important enough to find somewhere to put the fear. And all the other people who didn't start a podcast, one woman or you, all those people decided to wait. And so that's what the indoctrination pushes us to do. Just watch a little bit more TV. Just relax. You had a hard day at work. Go ahead and borrow some money because Christmas is coming. And all of that is built into our culture, but it is not required to be in our culture. What we can do if we want, choose to matter. And that's what my career has been about, reminding people they can choose to matter.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting, right? If I was to sum up, what I've read in all your stuff, it's all about choice and choosing to make a different choice, maybe a stronger choice, or maybe more of the same choice for some of us, right? But with that, you always say that we already have everything we need to be happy. You've written this. I've seen it. You talk about this. If that's true, right? If that's true, then why go on a journey? Why not just stay right here, Seth?
Well, first, I need to be very careful to qualify this. There are people who are in distress caused by external forces that are completely entitled to be as unhappy as they are. That I know how lucky I am, and my privilege is obvious, but I don't want to minimize what anybody is suffering with. But as I read something today, even if you are a victim, there is a difference between adopting a posture of victimhood or dealing with what you got dealt and doing something about it, as hard as that may be. So our narrative is super important here. And most of us have to go to work. Most of us have to earn a living to support our family. So what should our narrative be? And if our narrative is, I got to go to work, I got to support my family, therefore I'm like in the movie, like TV show Severance, I disappear, my heart and soul goes away for most of my waking hours. That breaks my heart. And what I'm saying is, yes, you could learn to be happy with chopping the wood and carrying the water. I think that's fine. But the thrill of doing something that might not work, the thrill of connection, of humanity, of showing up and making a difference is so magical that I would hate for someone to miss that. And we do that when we embrace and delight in the fear that comes with it.
Awesome. That's hopeful. That is hopeful. So with the song that's significant, Seth, how do we get started on that journey? How do we get started moving towards odds or whatever it is that we want to with a song of significance?
So I added one section to the book after I finished it. And it's a very simple idea that is very unsettling. The way to significance is to make the smallest generous change you can to the smallest viable audience. Not the biggest possible one, the smallest generous change you can make. Even if you're a high school teacher, even if you're a sanitation worker, is there one thing that you can do that's not in the manual that someone else will appreciate? 5 someone else's, 100 someone. What is the smallest viable group? What is the smallest generous change? If you can do it once, you can do it 4 times. And once it becomes a habit, you're now living a significant life.
Get started doing something small, and eventually it'll be something big and be significant. Fantastic. Wow, wow, wow. Well, folks, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I would love to read this book, I'd encourage you to get this on its significance. You can go to steps.blog/song, pick up a copy. I'd also encourage you to pick up his other stuff, sign up for his blog. Seth, you've been writing a daily blog post for what, 12, 13, 15, 20 years now?
20, I think, longer than podcast has been going on. You know, us old folks got to stick together. And I've told people, even if no one read my blog, I would still write it.
Yeah.
And the work that you do, the book you write, is going to be the most important book you read. The idea of narrating our choices, being able to look back and say, oh yeah, in 2006, I said this. It makes me better. And knowing that I'm doing it with and for other people like you, it also helps. So I thank you for being on this journey. And it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again too, my friend. Congratulations on your wonderful book. Can't wait to see everybody read it and rave about it. Way to go.
Thanks, Phil.